This is the piece of faceted glass that I foiled in the previous video in this post. Before foiling the next piece of faceted glass, shape and facet it to fit as closely as possible to the adjacent previously foiled glass to minimize any variations. This helps to create thin and regular lead lines, unless the thicker lead line is part of the design, as is the case in this Morning Glory. I hold the foiled pieces in position using a combination of small weights and pins before I apply a liquid flux and then solder using a small soldering iron, since I'm only applying a relatively small amount of solder. I specifically solder the adjoining outer edges, since this holds the pieces securely in place until all of the parts are attached. I continue to shape and foil each piece until all of the parts are assembled. Occasionally, the foil will lift away from the glass. This can be easily remedied by applying small amounts of solder. Note that the molten solder tends to collect in the depressions in the joints where the glass varies in thickness. In particular, in this pattern, where the thinner yellow glass abuts the thicker orange petal in the central portion of the flower. When the front of the flower is finished, I turn it over, apply flux, and solder the back. As I previously noted, the solder tends to collect at the adjacent uneven edges. To alleviate this, I hold the entire flower and, using a larger soldering iron, remove the excess solder with the help of gravity. Be careful not to allow the melted solder to fall onto your hands or feet. The removal of the excess solder is much easier if the faceted pieces, if they are part of a unit, are assembled prior to placing them into a panel. The final step is to hold the finished piece up to a bright light to be sure that there are no gaps in the solder lines, since light coming through a gap will be annoying to the viewer. This is the finished soldered flower ready to be placed into the panel. I have also shown the nozzle of my exhaust system, which vents the annoying solder fumes to the outside. The system is described on my website in the post on lead safety.